Okay, let's dive into this. Today, we're unpacking a fascinating story from our source material that honestly plays out like a classic moral fable, but it wraps up with this brilliantly satisfying heist-like twist. We're going to look at how pure integrity goes head-to-head with absolute corruption, and how one incredibly clever setup tips the scales of justice.
It's a question that really strikes at the heart of everything we value, right? What happens when you trust the wrong authority figure with literally everything you've worked for? I mean, imagine pouring years of blood, sweat, and tears into building a foundation for your life, only to just hand it over to someone whose entire reputation is a complete lie. Well, that's exactly the conflict we're analyzing today.
So let's start right at the beginning with Section 1, a desperate search for work, escaping the drought. The source introduces us to a guy named Bhushan. His home village has been absolutely devastated by a severe drought. We're talking ruined crops, bone-dry land, and people just desperately yearning for a single drop of water. With literally no other options, Bhushan leaves everything behind and walks to a neighboring village called Vijayapur. He has nowhere to stay, no job, nothing. Desperate, he approaches a wealthy farmer named Jagat Seth. He pleads for employment and makes a super simple promise. He'll do absolutely any job with complete honesty and hard work.
Seeing the sheer desperation in him, Jagat Seth offers Bhushan a job with a starting monthly salary of 200 rupees, plus 2 meals a day. Now obviously that's an incredibly humble starting wage, but it grounds our whole story. For a man with absolutely nothing, that 200 rupees, that represents sheer survival. It's the financial stake of Bhushan's hard labor. But what exactly does he have to do to earn it?
Well, Bhushan's daily grind is just relentless. He isn't just sweeping floors here. He has to single-handedly manage 50 cows and buffaloes. He's clearing their manure every single day, hauling their fodder, and making sure they have water morning and evening. And to top it all off, because he has literally nowhere else to go, Bhushan cheerfully asks to sleep right there in the smelly cowshed alongside the animals. He takes on this grueling physical labor just to survive.
Moving right along into Section 2, hard work and savings, looking at the fruits of honest labor. So, a few years pass. Bhushan works relentlessly. He wakes up early, cleans meticulously, and treats those animals incredibly well. And get this, because of his excellent care, the cows actually start producing more milk, and the quality of the milk goes up. Jagat Seth is so impressed by Bhushan's integrity and work ethic that he actually doubles his salary to 400 rupees a month. Because of this, Bhushan is finally able to build a small, clean hut for himself, escaping the rather fragrant aroma of that cowshed.
Now, what's really interesting about this is the culmination of all those years of sweeping manure and hauling fodder. Over time, Bhushan manages to meticulously accumulate a massive life savings of 5,800 rupees. When you think about his starting 200 rupee salary, this is an absolute fortune. It represents years of skipped comforts, disciplined saving, and just relentless, honest labor.
But, as you know, with wealth comes anxiety. The village starts experiencing a rise in thefts. Bhushan is terrified that his little hut is going to get robbed while he's at work all day. He really needs a secure vault. So he asks his employer, Jagat Seth, for some advice. Seth, acting with totally good intentions but relying on local rumors, suggests that Bhushan store his money with the village Zamindar, the wealthy landlord. Seth claims the Zamindar is famously honest and, crucially, has plenty of armed guards. But unknowingly, Seth sends our honest protagonist straight into the lion's den.
Which brings us to Section 3, a greedy landlord's betrayal and the illusion of trust. There is a really stark, heartbreaking contrast here. When Bhushan drops off his 5,800 rupees, the Zamindar tells him there's no need to count it. He completely trusts him. So Bhushan, operating on blind, honest trust, hands over the cash based purely on the landlord's reputation. He doesn't ask for a single piece of paper or a receipt. Fast forward 2 years. Bhushan wants to buy his own land and goes to retrieve his money. But suddenly, the Zamindar pretends he doesn't even recognize him, weaponizing bureaucracy against a totally vulnerable man. The Zamindar drops this incredibly hypocritical line. He says, "I only do business on paper. Do you have any documents?" He demands stamped papers that he specifically avoided creating in the first place. This just brilliantly illustrates the sheer arrogance of a corrupt man. He uses his power and the technicality of paperwork to casually steal an honest worker's entire future.
Bhushan is, understandably, completely devastated. He falls to his knees begging for his hard-earned money, trying to explain that he gathered it through immense struggle. And the Zamindar's response? He calls Bhushan a fraud, claims he's taking advantage of his innocence and actually orders his guards to beat Bhushan with sticks until he's unconscious, supposedly for questioning his honesty. Bhushan is brutally battered and literally thrown into the street.
It's just a sickening injustice. Bhushan lies wounded in his hut for 2 agonizing days, physically unable to go to work. His money is gone, his body is broken. And it brings us to this critical cliffhanger. How can a poor, honest worker possibly defeat a powerful, deeply corrupt landlord who has all the money and all the guards?
Well, that leads us right into Section 4, the master plan for justice, setting the psychological trap.
When Jagat Seth finds out what happened, he feels deeply responsible. He realizes the landlord's wealth is built entirely on scamming vulnerable people. So he devises this brilliant master plan. The trap operates on 4 crucial steps. Present a massive sum of fake bait money. Flatter the corrupt landlord's ego. Coordinate Bhushan's arrival. And finally, let the landlord's own boundless greed force his hand. So the crucial point is how Jagat Seth uses the landlord's own greed against him. Let's watch this play out.
Jagat Seth walks into the Zamindar's house carrying a large suitcase. He flatters the landlord and tells him he's traveling to another state for trade. He claims he's brought 50,000 rupees and needs the most honest man in the village to secure it while he's gone. Now, for the Zamindar, who literally just stole 5,800 rupees, the sight of 50,000 rupees is totally intoxicating. He immediately assures Seth that the money will be perfectly safe.
Right at that exact moment, perfectly planned, Bhushan walks in. The Zamindar is suddenly terrified. He thinks Bhushan is going to complain, expose his corruption, and ruin his chance to steal Seth's massive 50,000 rupees stash. Blinded by the bait, the Zamindar instantly changes his tune. He actually apologizes to Bhushan. He claims he just didn't recognize him before, immediately hands over the full 5,800 rupees, and even lies saying he fired the guards who beat him. He does all of this purely to appear completely trustworthy in front of Jagat Seth.
The execution of this heist is just incredibly precise. Minute 1, the Zamindar eagerly returns Bhushan's 5,800 rupees to keep up the charade. Bhushan quietly takes his money and leaves. Minute 2, right on cue, Jagat Seth's servant bursts into the room with fabricated news. He announces that the traders are actually coming to their village, so Seth doesn't need to travel after all. Minute 3, Seth thanks the Zamindar for his honesty, grabs his suitcase with the 50,000 rupees, and walks right out the front door.
And that brings us to our final section, the true reward of honesty, and how greed ultimately leaves you with absolutely nothing.
And this brilliantly illustrates the total defeat of the corrupt landlord. The Zamindar was fully expecting to keep Bhushan's 5,800 rupees and steal Jagat Seth's 50,000 rupees. He was banking on a massive windfall, but instead his own greed was entirely weaponized against him. Because he was so desperate for the larger prize, he willingly surrendered the money he had already stolen. His actual gain? 0. He is left sitting alone, realizing he's been completely and totally outsmarted.
The source material wraps up with Bhushan thanking Jagat Seth for saving his life savings, and Seth replies with this really profound thought. He says, "The Almighty never lets the honest suffer, and those who feed on ill-gotten wealth never prosper." It perfectly encapsulates the core ethical lesson we've unpacked today. You see, Bhushan's foundation was built on years of honest, grueling labor, and while it was tested, it survived. The Zamindar's wealth, however, was just a fragile house of cards built on deception, ready to completely collapse the moment a heavier weight of greed was placed upon it.
Which leaves us with this final thought. Honesty builds a foundation, but greed builds a house of cards. When the pressure is on, when that quick buck is just dangling right in front of you, the choices you make determine exactly what kind of structure you're living in. So I leave you with this. How are you protecting your foundation today? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep building honestly.